Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. And for those of you who are celebrating, happy Eid al-Fitr. Congratulations on successfully completing your fast. So, congratulations to all of us who successfully completed our fasts. Today, you can eat and drink as your heart desires. I'm not going to eat and drink to my heart desires because if I do that, I'm just going to be pigging out. I'm going to be eating like a pig. Okay, so I'm still, like I mentioned yesterday, I'm still going to follow based on the fast. I'm still going to follow a modified intermittent fast. Okay. So I'm going to eat later on this evening around 6 p.m. because there was a wonderful discipline I developed during the fast, during the Ramadan Lent fast. Like I mentioned, I've seen so many health benefits in just 30 days. It's just like amazing. And I didn't have to change my diet. Now, granted that I'm not a junk foodie. Okay, I'm not into junk foods. But I really didn't have to change my diet. Okay, so now that I got that part under my belt, I am thinking now I can start introducing diet changes to the fast and then see where that takes me. I did find out I increased in flexibility. I increased in resiliency, physical resiliency. I increased in my endurance. So I find that I'm not as winded as I used to be. Please take a moment to like and share the class. Get your drink, your notebook, your snack, and your pen. We have an interesting story for today. And for those of you who don't know, today is the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, and it's the fall or autumn equinox in the southern hemisphere. So for those who are dialing in from the southern hemisphere, with a shout out to my South Africans in the house, you will be experiencing the fall equinox. And those of us who are in the northern hemisphere, we are experiencing the spring equinox. Okay. What does equinox mean? Equal day, hours of day and night. So you'll have exactly 12 hours of daylight and exactly 12 hours of darkness today. So for both the spring and autumn equinoxes. Okay. Advanced members, remember that at 10 p.m. today, we will be having our ancestor healing ritual. Okay, so make sure you have all your materials ready. The Google Meet link has already been posted. For general membership, we're having our community gathering at 8 p.m. today. It's free to all members. And the Google Meet link has been posted. I'm going to double check and make sure that it's also posted on YT. Okay. If you need to get a hold of me, you can find me on my site. Okay. Here, I need to plug TikTok for a minute because TikTok penalizes us for mentioning our sites. So my website is at tochi.us or drtochi.com. And you can book me there for your spiritual consultations. Okay. You can reach out to me there for spiritual consultations, which include divinations, for your dream interpretations, and also check out events. Speaking of events, we have our level 1 Reclaim Your Authority starting on Sunday, March the 22nd, and will go on for 7 days. Okay, seats are still available. And after that, on March the 29th, we have level 2, embody your authority. These seats are still available for that, but level 2 is only open to those who have completed level 1. I think I pretty much got all the announcements in. Today's class, we're going to examine an equinox story. Okay, is a northern equinox story. Oh, before I forget, if you need rituals for the summer equinox, spring equinox, fall equinox, those are already posted on YT. So all you have to do is just look up the equinoxes. I already did classes on that, and you can look up the rituals for that you can do today. You can do it like within 24 hours of today. How about that? Okay. Now is a good time to start looking at what you want to plant to start blooming for you. Now is a good time to start looking what you want to plant to start blooming for you. How do you want people to see you? How do you want people to treat you? Now is a good time to start establishing that. Okay. So our story today is Kim Jamshid and the first Nowruz. And this is a story from Persia. Persia is current day Iran and Iraq. And our thoughts and positive energy and our love go out to the people of that region with what is going on there. Okay? May the truth prevail. Shame. May righteousness prevail. Shame. Okay? So, today is also the first day, the official start to the Persian New Year. So you have the Christian New Year, the Jewish New Year, the Islamic New Year, the Chinese New Year, the Mayan New Year, the Vietnamese New Year, the Indigenous New Year, and now we have the Persian New Year. Okay. So there are many ancient cultures that started observing their new year at the spring equinox. Okay. And Persia and the people of Persia are one of those peoples. Okay. That today is their new year. And so I was seeing on the news in Iran today, people came out to celebrate the new year in Iran, and their enemies started dropping stuff on them, which is not nice. That's my opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's my opinion. It's not nice. Because when the elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. So the tale, so Happy New Year to those who are celebrating the Persian New Year. Happy, how is this said? Edi Shoma Mubarak. If you're from Persia, from the Persian region. The tale of King Jamshid is one of the foundational myths of Persian culture, and it was primarily recorded in the Book of Kings, and that Book of Kings was called Shahnameh. Okay? And this Book of Kings was an epic poem written by the Persian poet Ferdowsi around 100 CE. Not 100, 1000 CE, the Christian era, so about 1,000 years after uh, Christ. Remember, there was a lot of literature that emerged out of the Persian area. Remember Rumi, who was the 13th century Sufi mystic, and we have like beautiful poems from Rumi. There's been a lot of art and culture and science that has come out of Persia that the world benefits from today. A lot, just a lot. Okay. However, Jamshid's roots go back even further to ancient Zoroastrian sacred texts, the Avesta. And in the Avesta, Jamshid is known as Yima. Some of you might be familiar with the Zoroaster. I'm trying to get my words across the double vowels there. Zoroastrian religion. Some of you might be familiar with the Zoroastrian religion. Okay. And the Zoroastrian religion is a very old religion of Persia. And the divine being of that was Ahura Mazda. Okay? And basically, their religion divided things into two, good and evil. That's it. So you are either on the side of good or you are not on the side of good. That's it. That religion. Okay? So Jamshid was the fourth king of the Pishdarian dynasty, the first mythological rulers of Persia and Iran. Okay. Remember that Persia predated Iran. This Iran and Iraq are actually modern nations that were carved out of the ancient Persian Empire. According to legend, he was divinely chosen to rule and was endowed with the Farr, Farr. Now, when I was researching this story, I thought it was very interesting. And you will see why. The Farr, Farr, in their culture, is considered a magical aura of divine grace and legitimacy granted by the creator god Ahura Mazda. So, in other words, here we have a person whose aura was being described in this myth, in this folktale. This person had a bright aura, and this aura was divine. There's a ritual that some of the advanced members and I performed recently as part of the advanced member demo class. And after that ritual, after we went through that ritual, practiced the ritual, I shared with them that those kinds of rituals will light up your aura on the astral plane. There are certain kinds of rituals you do, especially for protection, for attraction, that will light you up on the astral plane. So entities will see you very quickly. People will see you very quickly. And both the good and the not so good will be attracted to you because they can see you. You're just like a shining star on a spiritual level, on the astral level. They can see your energy, and your energy is like glittering to their eyes. So that is kind of similar to what was happening here to Jamshid, King Jamshid. Okay. He was the sort of person that if you went to go do his divination, you would see he had, when people say you have a bright star, okay, they have a bright star. He was that sort of person. It was clear and evident. And when you have that kind of aura, you attract all kinds of things to you. You attract protection and wealth and health and knowledge, inspiration. You attract people. You attract animals. You're just attractive all around. People want to help you. People want to give to you. People want to do things for you. Okay. Oh, let me check the Wi-Fi here. Make sure. Okay. All right. So when Jamshid took the throne, he ushered in a literal golden age. He was a king of unparalleled wisdom and immense power. And I know we can say that that description is similar to that of Solomon, of the Jewish, tales. Okay. He subjugated all the demons, the divs, fairies, and spirits of the world, forcing them to do his bidding. I put it to you, thank you for liking the live, Lala. I put it to you that Jamshid was the original prototype of Solomon. I put it to you. He was the original prototype. Because remember, latter religions tend to borrow concepts from earlier religions. Okay. And if there's an existing religion and a new religion is coming out, in order to make it palatable and acceptable to the people who eventually follow the new religion, they will borrow elements of the old religion to make it easier for people to follow. So just this description alone lets you know that this was the prototype for Solomon. Okay. Solomon of the Tanakh, Solomon of the Old Testament, and Suleiman of the Quran. This was the prototype. This was the original. Because you see here, he subjugated all the demons, divs, in the Persian language. He subjugated all kinds of spirits in the world and made them do his bidding. And this is exactly the same description given to Solomon. Under Jamshid's rule, humanity was elevated from a primitive state into a highly advanced civilization for that time. Now, don't come at me and say, well, did they have internet? Did they have Snapchat? Did they have TikTok? Did they have YouTube? Did they have Spotify? No, not that kind of advancement, okay? He was credited with teaching humankind the essential arts of survival and prosperity, such as forging and making armor. He taught people how to mine iron and forge weapons, armor, and tools. This was attributed to him. So you can see he was very wise. Again, the Solomon prototype. This was the original from which Solomon, the story and the legends of Solomon was extracted. Textiles. He introduced the spinning of silk, of cotton, and wool, teaching people how to weave and dye beautiful garments. And he discovered healing herbs, invented the making of perfumes, and forced the demons to mix clay and water to build grand palaces and bathhouses. So he introduced bathing as a necessity. He taught people how to adorn themselves, make themselves beautiful and attractive, clean themselves up. Okay. He organized society into 4 distinct groups to maintain order: the priests, the warriors, the farmers, and the artisans. And we can see this caste system in places like India. So he introduced the caste system in order, like division of labor, like everybody had their place, everybody had the thing, their contribution to society. So everybody knew what they had to do. He was a great organizer, great manager. Okay. Remember to power tap if you're on TikTok. And if you're on YouTube, remember to give the class a thumbs up. So for 300 years, there was absolute peace while he reigned. So that tells you right there, he was somebody who with a very long life. 300 years. During his reign, there was no extreme heat, no extreme cold, no aging, no sickness, and no death. That is why it is said he ushered in the golden age for the Persians. Jamshid's greatest test. Here comes the test. Was an impending apocalyptic climate disaster. Ahura Mazda, remember Ahura Mazda is the creator in the Zoroastrian religion. So Ahura Mazda warned Jamshid, the king, that a devastating fatal winter was coming, a frost so severe it would destroy all life on Earth, followed by a massive melting of snow that would flood the world. Does that sound familiar? Flooding of the world. Again, here we see a prototype of the flood story that we see in the Jewish religion and in the Christian religion and in the Islamic religion. Here's the original. But what I like about this one is that unlike the Abrahamic faiths that just said God woke up one day and decided to flood the earth and take out all the evildoers, in this original story that is older, they give a reason for the flood. There's going to be bad weather. There's going to be a lot of ice and snow. And when that ice and snow melts, then there will be a flood. And we see that even today. The ocean levels have risen in the Arctic and Antarctic because of the melting of the snow. So that is observable. There's nothing woo-woo, there's nothing magical about that, there's nothing spiritual about that. If you melt ice, it will turn to water. Okay. And so you see how this is a logical explanation for what went down. So Jamshid was instructed to gather the seeds of the finest, healthiest plants, the best of every animal species, and the strongest, most virtuous humans. He brought them into the Vara alongside a glowing fire that provided artificial sunlight, protecting the essence of life while the world above froze and died. So he brought them into the Vara, which is like a cave underground. He brought them underground. And so they had a fire, they had all the seeds they needed to use after the catastrophe. They had people, strong people with good morals that will help to repopulate the earth. They had animals, they had everything. And again, I want you to observe how logical the story is. There are cultures around the world that live in caves underground, subterranean caves underground. So this is not far-fetched. You don't have to say, okay, how could somebody build an ark like Noah's ark? Keep all the animals in there without them killing each other or eating up each other and be sailing around. You see how this is more realistic. Huh? Once the catastrophic winter passed, the survivors emerged to repopulate the earth. A lot of cultures and traditions around the world also have their variation on the flood. And they either drew it on cave walls or had it in their oral traditions. They talk about the flood. Most indigenous communities have stories about the flood. I understand in this part of the world, many of us just heard of the flood through Bible studies, okay, or through Islamic studies or through Jewish studies. But all you have to do is a simple search, and you will find out that there are multiple cultures that also have the story of a flood, how a flood, a divinely connected flood came, wiped people out, and people had to start life again. Now, we have scientists saying that there was the period when the earth really iced over and took out life, a lot of life. A lot of huge animals went out because they couldn't survive that ice. And even animals and even humans were taken out. But some humans survived in caves. So I that's what fascinated me about the story, how it closely tracked archaeological discovery and scientific um, research about what happened to the earth. Why is it that all these cultures keep, telling, narrating the story of flooding? Okay. So, Vara, what is this Vara? To save humanity, Ahura Mazda had commanded Jamshid to build a Vara, the Vara, V-A-R-A, a massive multi-tiered underground enclosure. So he built this Vara underground and then brought in all these things. So after the world was restored and civilization now reached its peak again, because remember now, these people didn't know what death was. There was no death. Okay? Jamshid's power and glory were unmatched. He decided to create a monument to his reign and the prosperity of humanity. He commanded his subjugated demons to construct a magnificent, sprawling throne studded with flawless diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and other precious metals. He got the demons to do it the same way that Solomon commanded. If you go into the Jewish religion, Jewish scholars will tell you that King Solomon used to command the demons to work for him. They used to mine for him, construct things for him, do things for him, do healing for him. He would send them on all kinds of errands. And because he had the power to control the demons. And so the same thing here with Jamshid. So they constructed a magnificent, huge throne for him with all these precious metals. Once it was finished, he ordered the demons to lift the immense throne off the ground and carry it high into the heavens. Okay. Jamshid sat upon the airborne throne. His divine far, remember far is his aura, glowing so intensely that he looked like a second sun shining in the sky. So here we have a person who had so much knowledge. He was able to work with the element of earth, the Vara. He was able to work with the element of water, the flood, the ice and the flood. He was able to work with the element of air, his throne being carried up into the air. And now he challenged the element of fire because now he's up there in the air and his aura is shining so brightly that if you looked up in the sky, you saw the sun and you saw him, you'd be like, oh my goodness, there are two suns in the sky. So basically, he was a master magician of the four elements. He was a master magician, a master occultist of the four elements. And he was able to directly speak with the creator. That's a very, very powerful position to be in. Very, very powerful. Okay? The people of the world looked up into the sky, seeing him sitting on the sky throne, and they looked up in absolute awe. They had survived the devastating winter, and now their king was shining in the heavens, bringing the warmth and light of spring back to the earth. Yeah, you're right. A full-on glam. The people gathered from all corners of the empire, scattering jewels, flowers, and gold toward the sky in celebration. They declared this magical moment to be the start of a new era. They called that day Nowruz, which translates directly from the Persian as New Day. So that's why and how they started celebrating Nowruz. The day that the sun, their king, was like the sun in the sky, glowing. And their civilization, their recovery, everything, their art, their science, their medicine, their chemistry, their technology, everything was attributable to this king on that glittering throne in the sky. Okay? This event occurred on the exact moment of the vernal equinox, which is today, the spring equinox, the first day of the Persian month of Farvardin. permanently establishing the holiday that represents the triumph of light over dark, warmth over cold, and life over death. So, this is what this day represents to the Persians, to the people of Iran, Iraq, and those regions. This is what today represents to them, the spring equinox. Okay? So that's how they tell the tale of how they started having their new year starting from today. So even though this is a joyous story, the full story of the King Jamshid himself does have some tragedy. So after centuries, because remember back then, no one died, okay? After centuries of flawless rule and universal adoration, Jamshid's ego started to consume him. Sitting on his heavenly throne, looking down at the perfect world that he had built, he forgot that his power was from Ahura Mazda. So he now demanded that his subjects worship him not just as king, but as the one true creator God. So now he was trying to usurp the position of Ahura Mazda. And remember that Ahura Mazda was the creator God. We now see the prototype of the story of Lucifer in Judaism and Christianity. Here's a prototype, here's an origin of that story. Because remember, Zoroastrianism preceded a whole bunch of these Abrahamic religions by thousands of years. It preceded it. And so here, he is on his throne, is a glittering throne. It's an immense throne. It's a throne with gold and diamonds and rubies and emeralds and sapphire. And he's glowing in the sky. Remember, his far is glowing in the sky. So he's in the sky like a second sun. And he now says, I want you all down there who are adoring me for all this work I have done, all the civilization I have brought, all the technology advancement I have brought. I want you to worship me. And you can see that this part of the story resembles the Jewish or Hebrew concept of Satan. Oh, there's Lucifer. Lucifer was a bright star. Lucifer means light. That's why in science, if you want to describe something with that has light, is glowing, you would say it's Luciferous. It's Luciferous, meaning light. So now we look at the Jewish religion and we see that they tell the story of Lucifer, the angel of light, that was in charge and wanted to contest God and wanted to be worshipped like God and wanted to have powers like God. Okay? If you look at the story of Lucifer, especially from the Jewish perspective, he was considered an angel, a powerful angel, an archangel who glowed like the sun. And now we're seeing it in this religion that predates Christianity, that predates Judaism. Okay. So now Jamshid demanded that his subjects worship him not just as a king, but as the one true creator God. In other words, I created all these things you are enjoying. I created all these things you're experiencing. Bow down and worship me. The moment he spoke this blasphemy, his divine glory, that far, remember that his aura shattered and abandoned him. He lost the favor of heaven. The demons rebelled. His subjects, the people on the earth, lost their immortality. And sickness and death returned to the world. Weakened and despised, Jamshid was eventually overthrown and violently taken out by the tyrannical, serpent-shouldered king Zahak, plunging the world into a 1,000-year age of darkness. Again, we see reference to this in Revelations. Remember the 1,000 years mentioned in Revelation? So this is why I say to you, no religion we have today is original. There is no religion we have today that is original. None. If I decide right now that I want to start the Dr. Tochi religion, I will borrow from other extant religions. This is why hoodoo borrowed from voodoo and the Bible. This is why Santeria Candomblé borrowed from Ifa. This is the reason why African Pentecostal churches borrow from African traditional religions. This is why modern Islam is now borrowing the prosperity philosophy of the Christians. More than, okay, you're saying everything is connected. More than everything is connected, everything is borrowed. The Christmas that we celebrate is actually the Yuletide ritual from Europe. They had a ceremony that they would do at the time of the winter solstice, and they would cut down a log. They called it the Yule log. Okay? And that also is buried in ancient Celtic, pagan, indigenous traditions. And in order to make it easy for those people to convert over to Christianity, they just subsumed their traditions. Same thing that you're seeing in Santeria. Oh, we pray to Saint John, we pray to Saint this and Saint that, but actually it's an Orisha. Remember when we had the class on Saint Bridget, and it turns out that Saint Bridget was actually the recasting of Brigid, the goddess, when we were talking about apotropaic devices in Europe. You're right, nothing is new under the sun. So this is why I say to people, there's no point getting overly emotional over whatever religion that it is that you believe in. Thank you for the likes, Christina. There's no point getting excited over any religion, even your own spirituality. Remember, we talked about this. For instance, you have a number of African spiritual practitioners who use candles and incense. Their forefathers never used candles and incense. But there are a lot of African spiritualists and spiritual practitioners who use candles and incense. I use candles and incense. Is that the traditional way that the ancestors, African ancestors from different parts of Africa, did their rituals? No, they didn't. They didn't have incense and they didn't have candles. Candles are a European invention. It's a European technology, candles are. Most people back in the day would use a firebrand or an oil lamp. And there are parts of Yoruba land when they're doing their rituals, they still use the oil lamp. They have a little clay bowl, and they put a piece of rag in it and with some palm oil in it, and then they light that up. You have similar technology in Asia, especially India, Nepal, Tibet, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. That was the original quote unquote candle. There were lamps, oil lamps. And even when you read your New Testament, for those of you who are Christian, you will read of references to of the oil lamps. Remember the seven virgins that had oil lamps? They didn't have candles. When you read your Old Testament or when you read the Tanakh, you will see references to oil lamps, not candles. But if you go in churches today, you go into shrines today, you go into traditional indigenous, a whole bunch of people using candles. That so you can see that that was borrowed. That's why I say to folks, there is no point getting emotional over what you believe in. Oh, my way is the only way, is the pure way. There is no religion, no spiritual path today that is pure. And I don't care what anybody has to say about that. I'm ready to stand toe to toe with them on this. None is pure. You will see people say, like I remember talking with a spiritual practitioner from Nigeria. And he's like, oh, I'm lighting these 7 candles. And he brought candles of 7 different colors. And I asked him, your ancestors, I'm not talking about your father, I'm not talking about your grandfather, I'm talking about your great grandfather and up. Did they ever know what candles were, ever used candles? He says, of course not. I said, so do you see that in reality, the candles are not what cause your rituals to work? It's not the candles. It's not, you can do your ritual. You could devise a way to do your ritual without the candles and it will work. If you go to the Near East, the Middle East, and Far East, they also used oil lamps, not candles. That's why they had beautiful lamps, beautiful oil lamps. But you will see people now saying, oh, I want to do some Arabian magic and I need to get some candles. You can do your Arabian spells without candles. Because candles were borrowed. So I'm just using that as an example. There are so many things that you will see people, for instance, use Florida water. Look at the history of Florida water. The first use, the primary purpose of Florida water was not for spiritual purposes. Go research this yourself. That was not the primary purpose of Florida water. Florida water was made by Lanham and Murray for freshening, because back in the day, people didn't bathe as much as we do today. They didn't shower as much as we do today. So they made this beautiful, strong cologne that you could smack on and feel fresh and smell fresh. And if you're a man, you will shave and you will take this cologne because it has some alcohol on it, and you will rub it there. It will prevent inflammation. It will prevent the infection of the razor nicks on your skin. That was the primary purpose of Florida water. And at that time, they made different kinds of colognes. So there was Florida water, and there were other kinds of water being made. There was rose water, Florida water. Let me check here. I want to see. Okay, all kinds of water. Okay, this is Florida water. This is rose cologne. See that? Rose cologne. I know on TikTok it's kind of flipped the other way around, but hopefully you can read it. Cologne. Okay. Landman and Kemp. Murray and Landman. Landman was in the business of making these things. So you see, this was by Landman and Kemp. Landman and Kemp Berkeley. This one was Murray and Landman. Okay. Proprietors, Landman and Kemp Berkeley. So the same people that made this made this. This was meant for freshening. And that is the reason why it has that nice lemony smell. They spend some time perfecting these things. And that's why when you hold it in you feel your spirit rise, because it's got bergamot, it's got lemon in it, it's got flowers in it. Okay. Mrs. Allen says 4711. 4711. That's another kind of cologne. This was also used for freshening up. It was after, and this was made for the European markets. That was the first target market for this. This was made for the European market abroad, living in the tropics. It's made for them because everywhere was sweaty and hot and humid. And people needed to be fresh because folks stank. And then from these colonizers and settlers, the indigenes got introduced to these products. And then they started finding other uses for cologne. It became a staple in South America. So people at some point were using it both for their own personal hygiene, and then they started using it for spiritual things. Oh, it smells so good. It smells so, and Florida water smells heavenly. Okay. They started finding, oh, if I use this cologne, there it makes me feel a certain way. It elevates my spirit. Some people are like, oh, okay, if it elevates my spirit, I'm sure it has some spiritual function. And so shamans and other kinds of practitioners in South America started using this thing on a large scale. And before you know it, the story of how this was being used spiritually carried back to Europe. And when it carried back to Europe, it started carrying to other colonies. And when it started carrying to other colonies, you start having European colonies in Africa now saying, oh, it's used for spiritual things. We need to incorporate it in what we do. And they started incorporating Florida water and all these other colognes in the work that they do. They started putting it in their soaps and in other kinds of medicines. But if you ask the question, did your ancestors use colognes in their ritual works, in their things? Their ancestors didn't have an idea about these colognes because colognes, that's that's a European invention. It's a European invention that became widespread in the colonies that were in the tropics. Because people were funky. Them settlers and colonialists were funky. People that already lived in those regions already knew, oh, okay, I can take a dip in the river anytime. I can take a dip in the stream anytime. I have these, there are even some places like in Papua New Guinea, there are certain trees that actually contain water. Once you slice the trunk of, they're like bamboo trees or something. Once you slice them, you turn them, water will come rushing out of them. The indigents knew these things. They had ways, their indigenous ways of freshening themselves up. So they weren't using colognes. And people were more comfortable with natural smells. Okay, this is how everybody smelled. But the European thing was because it was a court thing. Because remember, the ordinary people, the serfs of Europe, they stank as much as everybody else around the world. But in the courts, it was important that you smell nice because there wasn't a lot of bathing going on in the courts. And remember that the royalty in Europe tended to have more diseases than the ordinary people because of their rich diets. I read an account recently about King Henry the Eighth. Wasn't he the one that was busy separating the heads of his wives from their bodies? I believe it's King Henry the Eighth. History buffs, please correct me if I'm wrong. And I was reading, somebody was writing, I think it was a feminist writing, saying the annoying part about that king, the annoying part about that king was that he was covered in ulcers and boils. And he stank to the high heavens. And his best friend was his personal aide. And part of the functions of his personal aide, who was his best friend, was to clean him after he went potty. Imagine being the best friend of somebody that you have to clean each time they went to potty. So when it was time for him to go to potty, he would go sit on the royal potty, which was made of wood. It's portable. And when he was done with that, the best friend would come and wipe him down and clean him and then help him get dressed. And his body was covered in boils, ulcers. They said he smelt something terrible. And this was the person who still was separating the heads of his wives from their bodies. I have to be careful because of the platform, but you know what that means. And I think he went through what, 8 wives? And wasn't he doing that to them because he wanted a male heir or something like that? These were the kind of people for whom colognes were made. But at some point, we started integrating colognes into our spiritual work. If you go to some Pentecostal churches that use rituals, their kinds of rituals, they use colognes. They have their own kinds of colognes. The Celestial Church, they have their colognes. Cherubim and Seraphim have their colognes. And it's all used in their prayer work, deliverance work, and all kinds of spiritual work. There's another, what was that church in Jamaica? They have branches in New York. Mrs. Allen, help me out here. Was that Jamaican church? Their Pentecostal church, their way, there is it a holiness church? Uh, um, is a holiness, it's a Jamaican church. It's similar to the Nigerian church, and they wear white, and they use a lot of flowers and fruits and colognes and water, just like the Nigerian Cherubim and Seraphim Church or the Celestial Church and other churches like that. They use colognes in their spiritual work. So 21 Division uses colognes. We can go down the list. You say he got to be over 300 pounds. Okay. So we're talking about, so that's why I say to people, no religion is pure. No spiritual tradition is pure. If someone is saying to you, oh, my spiritual tradition, this thing I'm practicing is pure, this, religion I'm practicing is pure, they're deluded. Gifty Nation, please give me a moment. I want to address somebody here. Gifty Nation, you are an ingrate. You are ungrateful. And you are the kind of person I was talking about yesterday. You are the epitome of ingratitude. You come here, TikTok people, I'm going to block you for a minute. You come here and watch my free videos. You benefit from the information from my free videos. And you have the audacity to come under my videos and comment that my consultation fees are too high. I saw one of your comments today and I said, you do not have to come to me. You don't have to come to me. Go find a spiritual practitioner that you can afford. Focus on the solution to your body odor problem and don't focus on the messenger. And you have the audacity to come all the way from your Igbo nation, you Igbo woman. This is the reason. Do you see that you are an Igbo woman? And you think it is okay to come here and act the fool? Are you mad? Are you crazy? You are ungrateful. You are the exemplar of ingratitude. And the reason why you have that body odor problem is because of your attitude. It's a stinking attitude that resulted in a stinking problem. I don't ever want to see you here again. Discharge yourself before I discharge you. How can someone come and watch your free videos online, consume your free content? Then you want me to add free services to my free content? Are you mad? Are your ancestors mad? Is there insanity in your bloodline? You are an ungrateful human being, and your ingratitude sows evil problems in your life. Everything you touch turns to ashes. Everything you lay your hands on is destruction, sorrow, disgrace, and humiliation. Take that as you will. How dare you? So as we were saying, so in these cultures, cologne was necessary. So do not look at yourself as having to be so rigidly bound. Oh, because depending on where you are, you have to use the tools that are available to you to do the work that you need to do. You have to do the work that you need to do based on the materials that you have. Okay? So, any questions about today's class? We can see how Judaism heavily borrowed from this Persian religion. Okay. So when people come out and say, oh, my curse, and I haven't even jumped into that, I haven't even jumped into where does Jehovah come from? Where does Yahweh come from? Where does Lord? There are Bible scholars who have done huge work. When we say El Shaddai, El Roy, and all those names that we use, especially in Pentecostal churches, there are people who have done outstanding work on tracing the Canaanite deity origins of those names that are used in Christianity today. Okay. So what questions or comments do you have about today's class? Mrs. Allen says, Dr. T, I love the comment that says, turn them into a toad. I didn't see that one. Oh, okay. I see. Absolute. Absolute is Honey Bunny Forever on TikTok. Absolute. She cray in a good way. She cray in a good way. She said, "Turn them into a toad." Don't mind Absolute. She funny like that. Oh my god, that's too funny. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Because this person had commented on several of my videos yesterday. And and the one she went to comment on was on body odor. And she's like, okay, now imagine, and I can pull up the comment and y'all can see the comment. Okay, now isn't my high fees adding to the problem? You went through my video where I talked about the problem of body odor and the solution. There is no video I put out on my channels. And I challenge you to show me which video I put out on my channel that doesn't mention the solution. I have two videos where I don't mention a solution, and those are what do you call them? Humor videos. Remember, some of you might remember that video I did on how to speak with your ancestors. Go get the snake plant and get the blue drink. Y'all remember that video where I said get the blue drink? Yeah, get the blue drink and pour that into the plant and keep staring at the plant, and then you will see the eyes of your ancestors. And people with half a brain knew that that was a joke. Then what was the other one that I didn't offer a solution? Remember that one I said, what was that joke video I put out? The one that I said the ancient wealth ritual, and I was like, get a pen, look for a pen, make sure it's a pen, make sure it's a writing pen, be sure it's a pen, get yourself ready to write. And then I ended the video, and people were just so discombobulated by that ish. I had people cussing me out. Okay, those are the only two videos that I have that I did not give any solution because they were meant to be humorous. Okay, people were writing me. One person wrote and said, I have been staring at my snake plant and I still haven't seen my ancestors in there. And I wrote in the comment and I said, did you put the blue drink? And I had a whole bunch of people from Africa writing and saying they're trying hard to see their ancestors in the plant and that they're pouring this drink. And I'm like, can you not read other people's comments and figure out that this is a joke? And then the other one about the ancient ritual that I wrote, one woman was cussing me out so bad and saying, in these hard times that families are trying to put things together and trying to feed their families, and you come out and write this kind of thing and dash people's hopes. Like seriously? And this is why people get taken. That was the point of these humorous videos. That's why people get taken. They hear, oh, fantastic, ancient, mysterious, and their common sense flies out the window. Their common sense flies out the window. And there are so many videos. People are putting out videos. Oh, here's an ancient way to do it. Go get some alligator seeds. Go and get a piece of onion, peel the onion, divide it into four, put it on a white plate and stand under the hot sun. Absolute. You are not going to instigate me. She's right in there, turn her into a toad. Who will pay for the materials to turn her into a toad? She already a toad. Okay. So all my videos that I put out, I have solutions. It's up to you to decide if you want to implement the solution. So like the matter of fact, I have two videos on body odor. Like the first one was like more or less a quick video, overview and stuff like that. So, but the second one, I went a little bit more in depth and I discussed medical reasons why people could have body odor, spiritual reasons why people could have body odor, metabolic deficiencies that could cause someone to have body odor, and possible solutions, which include allopathic treatments. Some people just need to go see their doctor. For some people, it's a hygiene issue. And I believe absolute this knucklehead, you had responded to her under her comment she made, complaining about my practices. You responded to her. Okay. So I talked about that and I said, okay, if it's like this, it's more like a spiritual issue, go to your spiritual practitioner. If it's like this, it's more like a health issue, go to your medical professional. Just figure out where all of this lies and go get a divination. And so this knucklehead here, I wrote there, I put in that comment today. I said, you don't have to consult with me. You don't have to talk to me. You don't have to come to me. Go find a spiritual practitioner you can afford and get the solution to your issue. And I said to her, focus on the solution, not the messenger. Anywho, I'm good. I'm good. All right, so no questions. I know people like absolute should be out here saying, please give us the instructions for a toad ritual. No, we're not going to do any toad rituals. We're not turning anybody into toads. They're already toads. Thank you, Mrs. Allen. I did explain that. I did explain that. So it's annoying. It's annoying. Coming in here telling me that I'm too expensive. What do you want me to do? To give you free services? Y'all remember that woman that came and I was talking about her, the woman that said, wrote a comment and said, I hate when you talk about yourself in your videos. You're always talking about yourself and your business in your videos. Why can't you go straight to the topic? And I wrote and I said, if you paid me $2,500 a month, I'll stop talking to this was years and years ago, maybe about 5 years ago. I said, okay, pay me $2,500 a month and I'll stop talking about me and my business in my own free videos. You're watching a free video. Free. And then before you know it, that woman started cussing me out and said I should go get a real job, that she works for her money. You came on YouTube to watch my video, free content video. You don't want me to talk about my business. You don't want me to talk about myself. You want me to take time out of my busy day to just be a non-compensated entity providing you with free information, and you have no skin in the game. So she started cussing me out, and I blocked her. I just blocked her. And she was from the Caribbean. And I bet you her life hasn't improved since then. And we'll leave it at that. So again, remember, member meeting today, 8 p.m. CST, spiritual gathering. We'll all come together, get to meet your fellow students and practitioners. It's free to all members. We'll be meeting on Google Meet tonight at 8 p.m. CST. And at 10 p.m. CST, we'll be having the ancestral ritual with the advanced members today. Today is the solstice. The equinox. I do have free videos on my channel about different rituals and different things you can do on the equinoxes and on the solstices. So I did one for each of the four. So you can look that up and do something for yourself. Take advantage of the energies of this period. Okay. And of course, today's class will be available as a replay on YT. All right. Okay, so TikTok came up and said they're restricting my live because I am promoting branded products or services. Do you see how crazy this thing is? So, two restrictions: live visibility restricted for 10 minutes because you may be promoting a brand product or service. This restriction will be removed once you add products to TikTok shopping cart or turn on the content disclosure setting. And then the second restriction, your live contains themes that some may find uncomfortable and has been restricted. Reason: commercial disclosure and paid marketing. You see how TikTok is? Just because I talked about someone giving me a hard time. Now TikTok is assuming that I'm trying to sell something. That is so ridiculous. That's why I don't even like TikTok. Sweet mommy, I would like to attend the class starting on Sunday, but I'm on call on Sunday, Monday. Yes, at night. So if you want to join, you can join. Just do the best you can. I feel like people don't respect spiritual services until their life is falling apart, and that's true. And remember, we just talked. Okay, I see what you mean. Well, and remember, we just talked about this yesterday. People ought to learn how to be grateful. We just talked about this yesterday. We just talked about this yesterday. Okay. So, anywho, we are thankful to our Creator, our guardian spirits, our ancestors, and spirit guides for today's scintillating and stimulating class. May it continue to bear good fruit in our lives. Ashe, we say, Kamagu, the Kozo, the Seti, Makwande, Aibo, it is done. I just finished, it's completing. Amen. Amen. Thank you all for coming to class, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Now, TikTok, I'm gonna just end TikTok because TikTok got a lot of drama. No, no, no. Okay. Yeah, the 8 p.m. tonight is on Google Meet. I've posted the link for members. Oh, someone probably hating and reporting. Yeah, it's okay. I think it's an AI though. I think it's an AI. All right. See y'all later.